All right, good afternoon, coaches. This is Coach Teague, and I'm coming to you today from a different arena than the high school sports and coaching arena that's more typical for what I've put out on my channel. I've decided to be a little more personable and give content that basically delves into other areas of my personal interests in sports, and to get everyone or give everyone a different point of view as to, who I really am as it relates to who I follow in sports. And so I wanted to give some content to my channel in relation to college football and mainly my favorite team, Alabama. And as we go forward on my channel, as I grow more content, I also want to, delve into picks of the week and just things of that nature. But right now, we're coming out of spring ball. Just finished sitting here today watching the Alabama A-Day game. And I thought there would be no better way to begin my content on my favorite college football team, Alabama, than to start off with my first video on the A-Day game, give my assessment of it, and let's just jump right into it. First of all, just give some background for anyone who may think I'm a bandwagon jumper because of who Alabama is and Nick Saban and so forth. Many of you who know me, I don't have to explain this to, but for anyone new to my channel, I'm from Alabama. I lived there 38 years of my life. I was born there, actually born in Donaldsonville, Georgia, but I was there just for the birth and came right back over. So I'm from Alabama. Grew up during that time as a 6-7-year-old, if memory serves me right. It was my first stint into following the Alabama Crimson Tide. And so I've been there through the good, the bad, and obviously through this tremendously fantastic dynasty that Coach Saban created. Start off first before I get into A-Day. Kalen DeBoer, our new head football coach. Don't know much about him, as many don't, in regards to just knowing him from what he accomplished at Washington this past year. I was shocked with the hire. I didn't know who we were going to bring in. We saw a lot of coaches leverage their contracts based on interest, and which is fine. We live in a capitalistic society. So, but DeBoer's, like anything else, I'm that guy who's always said change is good in some aspects. But for the most part, change is good. So the slate is wiped clean, just like the whiteboard back here behind me. And we'll see where it goes. All right. Some of the concerns I had with Alabama were very minimal when DeBoer came in. I wasn't that guy who was chicken littling because we had all the guys jumping into the transfer portal and leaving and so forth. What I was most concerned with was when DeBoer came in, how the guys that stayed and the recruits coming in were going to acclimate to him. I was more concerned with how he was going to hit the recruiting trail, keep guys on board that were had already committed to Coach Saban. And I thought he did a real good job with that. I think we maintained and kept the guys that were already on board coming in. So the train is rolling. It didn't stop, because recruiting is the lifeblood of college football. And I think that was the biggest thing he needed to concern himself with in reference to Coach DeBoer when he came in. So I wanted to give a little bit of background about that. I didn't follow as closely as I had under Coach Saban when it came to off-season workouts and all that stuff. But, because that transition was still kind of bumpy. All that said, let's jump into A-Day. My expectations when I sat down today to watch the A-Day game, I didn't go into it expecting a lot. As a football coach, head football coach, we all know that spring game, everything you see is very vanilla. Coaches are more concerned with guys coming out of it injury-free from a schematic point of view. Coaches are just looking for efficiency. They're looking for execution and things of that nature. And they're looking for depth, looking for competition. And I think from what I saw a lot of that. I did like how structured it was from the time point of view. There was never a clock. So it was the first half and the second half. I thought that was pretty efficient. But overall, the stands looked packed, much like they usually are for every A-Day game. So that was good to see. So I didn't see a whole lot of things that were different from how things have been in A-Day. All right, let's look at the pros. I'm going to start offensively first. Some things I liked. Probably the biggest thing that jumped out to me was our running backfield. Oh, my God. Those guys are physical. Looks like 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D between Jam Miller, Justin Haynes, Richard Young is another guy. I mean, they are physical backs. Freshman, I think his name is Danny Hill. If I'm wrong, feel free to correct me on that, any Alabama fans, if I have his name wrong. But we have a nice four-headed monster in that backfield. And they look almost like clones. They're cut up, very physical, very downhill runners, with the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, as Jam showed in that Alabama-Georgia SEC championship game last year. So I'm really excited about our offensive backfield. Offensive line, I don't know. The jury's still out to me. Now, they opened up some running lanes, which I thought was good. They seemed to move a little better than they did last year. I thought last year our offensive line was pretty stagnant and kind of stiff. So that's promising to see, but, you know, I won't put a lot of stock into it until we get in the fall camp and I get more information about scrimmage sessions and things like that, and mainly during the year. Because if you remember last year, that first half of the season was wretched as far as offensive efficiency was concerned, especially that South Florida game. Receivers, I'm very pleased with that transfer that came in out of Washington that Coach DeBoer brought with him. I'm trying to remember his name. Jeremy, I wrote it down. Jeremy Bernard. Jeremy Bernard. He looked real smooth. He looked real good out there. We got Kobe Prentice coming back, which is good. And I think our receiver room is going to be real good, especially with that top recruit we got coming in at wide receiver. His name escapes me right now as well. So I think we're going to be fine at receiver. I think the one thing that we've lacked the last couple of years has been that go-to number one guy. That one guy that's going to command a double wherever he is to free up space for other receivers. I think we haven't had that since Williams left with that knee injury a couple years back. He tore his ACL. Mechie tore his ACL. So the wide receiver room has been by committee. So I'm excited about what we have coming back. I think Jeremy's going to be a good addition for us because I think his knowledge of that offensive scheme that DeBoer is bringing in is going to really kind of speed things up and help things out with Jalen, which is a nice segue into my assessment of Jalen. I thought Jalen and Ty Simpson both looked good today. I thought Jalen looked a lot more comfortable. The biggest thing I noticed, the ball was coming out of their hands a lot faster. The ball was coming out of their hands quicker. You didn't see quarterbacks trying to hold the ball. I thought at times last year Jalen held the ball too long. I thought in the limited time Ty Simpson came in, he held the ball too long. And he just looked to be playing more free this year. But speaking of Jalen looked a lot more comfortable. Now I know some of that comes with maturity in the program, being QB1. I think he's accepted that role. They've spoken a lot this offseason about his work ethic. So I'm excited about what Jalen brings to the table. And, you know, if something happens, and heaven forbid, and Ty Simpson has to come in, I think we're going to be okay with Ty Simpson. I think I saw a play where it was like a zone read or a power read type with Ty kept it and got some nice yardage off of it. So he's not going to be used, I can tell, as that typical just stand in the pocket quarterback. Defensively, didn't see a whole lot. They were flying around. You know, you can tell everything was very vanilla and generic. Defensively, wasn't any blitzing. They stayed in a base vanilla scheme defensively. So what you expect, as I've said. What jumped out to me is that it was interesting to see how fast time is flying. When you look up and Dre Kirkpatrick has a son out there wearing the same jersey number. And it doesn't seem like that long ago when Dre Kirkpatrick was the one out there roaming around in that defensive backfield. So I think we're going to be fine on the defensive end. I do think we need to test that transfer portal and see if we can get a couple of defensive backs in, because you just don't replace Kool-Aid and Terrion like that. Now, we've got some young guys coming in with a lot of potential, but as most coaches know and most fans should know, it takes some time. It's a growth learning curve. You don't find very many DBs that can come in out of high school and just start immediately. There's a big learning curve. High school coaches will tell you that's probably one of the harder positions to coach. And that translates into college, because you have to be him to be able to come in and get that starting position. And Dre Kirkpatrick Sr. was one of those guys. So offensively and defensively, that's kind of what my take was. I saw a lot that I liked. You could tell some of the guys that were like on the third string on the depth chart, they were a little off. And that's because of lack of reps, which happens. But overall, I think we're going to be fine. I think the drop off is not going to be anywhere near what people think it was with Coach Saban leaving. To kind of wind this down a little bit, didn't want to get this too long. I was excited to see my team back on the field. I was curious to see what it looked like without Coach Saban being there. And I think the most noticeable thing I saw was the fact that guys seem to be playing a lot looser. A lot of times you saw in the 8-8 game, Coach Saban was he was Coach Saban. He was over everything, controlling everything, and I thought guys played up tight a lot of times in those spring games. The boys seemed to be pretty hands off. He let them play, and which not saying anything was wrong with Coach Saban's way of doing it, because God knows who am I to criticize the greatest head coach of all time in college football. But the kids did seem to be playing a lot looser, which I thought was good. They seemed to be having a lot of fun out there. So the atmosphere just felt good. It felt good. And I hope with a lot of Alabama fans who were, very skeptical or curious, I hope today eased some tensions, and I think the future looks good. Again, you can't really gain a whole lot from a spring game, but I was very hopeful and excited about what I saw. I was asked earlier in the week by a friend of mine, what did I think Alabama's record was going to be this year? That's hard to say. If you just force my hand right now, I would say not seeing the full offense open up. I would just basically base it off of scheduling the road games we have. We have to go to LSU. We have to go to Tennessee, and we have to go to Norman, Oklahoma. Not to mention the one home game that's going to always be tough, and probably one of the more physical games we're going to play all year along with LSU is Georgia's coming to Tuscaloosa, and that's going to be tough. Fortunately, we have 2 bye weeks this year, so I think that's going to help us. We have the usual one prior to playing LSU, and I can't remember who the other one is, but we've got some tough games. We also have to go to Wisconsin as well, so it's going to be a lot of trial by fire. I see 2 losses on the schedule, but I still see us making the college football playoff. What those 2 losses are, I have no idea, but I don't see us going completely undefeated or anything like that. I see a couple of losses. But anyway, this is my first video on my Alabama Crimson Tide. I'm going to kind of make sure I make, new content each week on any updates and news that comes out of Tuscaloosa to give my take on it. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you enjoyed what I brought today. Again, if you are new to my channel, make sure you click that like button and also hit that subscribe button. I want to, see how I do as far as delving into this social media world, and not just the coaching part of it, but delving into other areas. Also, too, if you're a coach interested in the aspects of building or rebuilding a program, be sure to check out my website. It's CoachTConsultingLLC.org. Go check it out. I have a lot of content on there related to program building, and I will also be providing some quality content on here related to things that are familiar with high school coaches and coaches of any sort when it comes to rebuilding programs. Again, this is Coach T bringing you some news and content from my favorite college football team, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Thank you again, and I'll talk to you soon. Roll Tide.